some kind of resiliency to be able to really focus on wanting to see change around them. I mean, this can be in any sphere of life, really. So I looked at Buddhist practice and I broke it down into the various components. And the first component that is there has to do with, first of all, it's called the 4 thoughts that revolutionize the mind. Parochially, it's called the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. But these 4 thoughts are really important before you can really embark on a deeper spiritual life. And I'd say do it in a way that is more joyful than, ever so earnest and serious. Okay? The first point, which is the one that oftentimes is the hardest for people, is the notion of appreciating our lives. It's called precious human birth. One of my friends used to, when he came to the United States, his name is Lama Ole Nudal. He's a Danish Buddhist teacher. And people would come to him and talk to him about, all the issues they had with their mother or their father, or what their father did and what their siblings did, and the battles between them and their wives and their kids and everything like that. And all this anxiety and tension they had about who they were, where they were going. And Ola would listen to this, and usually what it also came with was a lot of victim feeling about their lives, how dire their circumstances were. And so their first assignment was to go out and buy the International Herald Tribune and read it for a week. And then come back and talk to him about whether their life was so horrible or not. That the first step that people need to take in really beginning to make a change is to have a real honest assessment of what your strengths are. And really begin to focus on what is right about your life and actually begin to love your life. Now that might seem a real hard one. I mean, we think about this circumstance that just happened in the newspaper over the last few days in terms of this one child, in Haringey, what was going on. And we can talk about that more later on in terms of mindfulness and how could anybody love a life like that. I wouldn't say that life of that child was a precious human birth, because people can be born in horrific situations. But not looking at the extremes, just looking at the potential we have in our own lives. And begin to focus on those things, because interestingly enough, for example, in Buddhist psychology, usually the idea is to emphasize or accentuate the positive. Okay? Whereas we here in the West tend to focus on what we can't do, and then begin to try and want to analyze why we can't do that. So for example, let's say, you've come to the conclusion that you're a really stingy bastard. You have a tendency to, and you really feel bad about it. You feel like you're really holding back all the time. You want to be more generous, but you want to understand why it is that you're so stingy. What is it about my past? What is it about my life that makes it so I can't really extend myself to others? And so you do years and years of therapy, and you come to the conclusion you're a stingy person. Okay? Maybe you're a little bit more at peace with that. From more of a Buddhist psychological standpoint, they might look at you and go, well, actually, yeah, you have that issue, but you're really, really patient. You're a very, very patient person. So what I'd like you to do, this is what a Buddhist therapist might say, is I really want you to start practicing patience in all sorts of new situations. So you might have been patient with your children. Try and be patient with your mother. Try and be patient with someone that's in front of you in the line in the supermarket. Take that quality that you have and see where you can apply it. And lo and behold, the more you begin to expand that patient quality, you suddenly find you become less stingy. You go in through the back door, you find a positive quality, you accentuate, you really learn to live in that positive quality, and suddenly something begins to bloom inside you. In Tibetan tantric practice, oftentimes what happens is a high teacher will look at you and they will find a meditation that really resonates with basically trying to accentuate the positive in who you are. And as a result, when you begin to do that practice, more than likely, you also run into the shadow side of who you are in the process. Until eventually what happens is all of that is transformed, and you are living as the deity. So the first point is that you need to like yourself, like who you are. And then the second point in all that is, and it all could go away. You know, the truth of it is, no matter how miserable your life is, you're going to die. And that's going to stop. And the truth of it is, you might have some really great things going on, but don't fall asleep like a cat with a bowl of cream, thinking it's all going to be good and you don't have to do anything with it, because that could be gone as well. You know, your positive stuff could go just as quickly as your negative stuff. Okay? Because of this notion of impermanence. And this notion of impermanence is something that we have really shied away from in our culture. Every possible vestige of impermanence we try to deny at various levels. Okay? In terms of that impermanence, we have birth, we have sickness, we have old age, and we have death. And what have we done to all four of those markers? Birth very rarely happens at home. Generations usually don't see other generations being born. We've put that behind hospital doors and a bevy of professionals who say they can do it better than anybody else. So we have generations that don't connect with birth. Sickness, we medicate every sickness. In the United States, they developed what was called the DARE program, which was Drug Awareness Reinforcement Education, okay, and resistance education. And the idea was to make kids aware of, you know, peer pressure and what drugs were, and to stay away from them. And it was like, dare to keep kids off of drugs. And I used to work with at-risk kids. And I'd say, really, part of that is also dare to keep parents off of Prozac. Okay? Because the truth of the matter is, we modulate everything. Our parents come home, they take a cocktail. If they're depressed, they go to their doctor and get whatever medication they need. So a child, as they become prepubescent and pubescent, begin to have all sorts of emotions. And parents' reaction usually is, just get over it. Well, you see, your parent is not getting over it. They're modulating their moods. So what happens is, as they go to their peers and friends for their drugs, you go to your friends for your drugs. So the issue is that it's not a quote-unquote peer pressure issue as much as a modeling issue in our society. We take drugs. That's what we do. It's very unusual or very rare to sit in a group of people and not find out that a good portion of them are on some kind of medication. Okay, and I'm not judging anybody here, but I want people to be aware of the fact of how many people, and I'm sure we're all aware of, elderly with a whole bevy of like medications for all sorts of things. I mean, how many people have